Hello, everybody. Hello, everybody. Wow, this is exactly what I thought it would be like. Woo! So cool, so cool. You guys are so awesome, so awesome. A question for you. How many of you want a lot more success in your life? How many of you want better relationships? Amazing health? True happiness? You have come to the what? One more time. Awesome. For those of you who don't know me, my name is T.H.E. Welcome to Seminar of the Century. Give your high fives all around. Say congratulations for being here. While you're standing, let's see where everybody's from. And instead of having you stand up, we're not going to have you sit down. We're going to have you jump up and scream when we call where you're from. Yes or yes? And everywhere else, we'll give you a big round of applause. If you are from Colorado, where are you? Stand up and scream. That's awesome. If you are from California, where are you? Woo! If you are from Washington State, where are you? If you are from the great state of Texas, where are you? Awesome. And any other state west of the Mississippi, where are you guys? Where are you guys? All right, good job. Thank you, thank you. How about, did anybody make it all the way here from Florida? Florida. You brought your weather with us, thank you. Georgia. You see how quiet they are? They're so polite over there, right? New York State. Just the opposite, great. How about Illinois? Anybody come from Illinois, yes? Fantastic, good job. And any other state east of the Mississippi, where are you? All right, good job. Now, let's see, did anybody get here from Ontario, Canada? Look at all these guys. Anybody from Quebec? Very nice. Anybody from Alberta? And British Columbia? And anywhere else in Canada? Where are you guys? There you go, the one from Saskatchewan. Very good. I love that, okay. How about anybody else showing up from anywhere outside of Canada and United States? Where are you? Jump up, where are you? Oh, you guys can, it'll be a little challenging. Let me hear, where are you from? England. Anybody else from the UK? Where's all my English people, right? Good. Anywhere else, where are you? Spain. Switzerland, where else? Nice and high, where are you? France, excellent, where else? Where? Netherlands, very good, super, where else? Sweden, excellent. Japan, very good. Very excellent. Awesome. So as you know, one of my favorite sayings is 80% of success, just what? Who knows? One more time. So since I can't reach you all, big high fives all around. Thanks for showing up. Great job. Good job. Okay, and have a seat, guys. Have a seat. This is exactly what I thought it would look like. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. I haven't been this excited since last week. When I taught warrior training. Whoa! Hey, one more aho, ready? Aho! Good job. All right, now I also want to especially thank and welcome those of you who came from the local Aspen Snowmass area and got tickets as part of our Give Back to the Community program. Big round of applause for all those guys. Let's hear it. All right, good. Welcome to your first Peak Potentials event. We hope to see you at many more. You start with the Millionaire Mind Intensive. First of all, there's a book called Secrets to the Millionaire Mind. Read that. If you like it, come. If you don't like it, stay home, okay? It's easy. Now, I believe you guys are going to love this program. What are you going to do? Well, first of all, it's a can't miss. As long as the weather holds out, and even if it doesn't, just being together is enough. Yes or yes? That's awesome. And, you know, you guys are making history right now, because as far as I know, this is the first event of its kind of all time, and you're at it. Good or good? And this has been a dream of mine for years and years and years. Actually, since I was 15 years old, believe it or not. How many of you ever heard of an event that was called Woodstock? Woodstock. All right. And how many of you were able to attend Woodstock? Attended Woodstock? Where are you? Not that many of you, but just a few. You're not sure. Okay, yeah, you were there for sure. Okay. All right. Anyways, good for you. You know what? Unfortunately, the truth is, I didn't even hear of Woodstock until it was after it was over. And I was totally disappointed and bummed out. I wish I would have been there. And as the universe would have it, however, the very next summer, there was another very large outdoor rock festival that was supposed to happen in Vermont called Strawberry Fields. And it turns out that in literally the last 3 days, something happened with their permits and they couldn't put the event on. So they found another location, actually an hour outside of Toronto, Canada, where I was living in a place called Buttonville, and they actually held the event there. This time, I didn't miss it. This time, I heard about it, and with a buddy, we hitchhiked to the event, and we had one of the greatest times. There was, like, every great band was there. You know, bands like Jethro Tull and Mountain and 10 Years After, Procol Harum, Grand Funk Railroad, Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, it was amazing. And everyone was connecting and sharing, and love was in the air, and other stuff was in the air. A lot of stuff was in the air. and I had one of the best times of my entire life from what I can remember. Anyways, and from there, I became kind of an outdoor festival fanatic. And wherever there was a festival, anywhere within driving distance, I used to go. And I spent literally weekends and days just like this in the sun, listening to bands like Pink Floyd and Yes and Fleetwood Mac and Eagles. Anybody an Eagles fan? Yes? Awesome. And I always had an amazing time. And so from the very first day, I actually began teaching seminars. What's the word? When I started actually training people, I had this vision in my mind that what if we could have an outdoor festival-like event, but instead of solely music, have it based in speakers and authors. Would that be cool, yes? And, you know, and instead of sex, drugs, and rock and roll, it was money, mind, and spirit, and a little sex, drugs, and rock and roll, okay? So. And if it's about sex, I don't want to hear about it, all right? So what if we could put together something called Woodstock for the Mind? And, well, we have, and the time is when? Now, and the place is where? Here. When is it? Now. Where is it? Here. When? Where? When? Where? Where? You're just lucky we're not at Warrior Camp, right? All right, good stuff. So how many are excited to be here? Awesome, awesome. That's great. Okay. All right, before we go on here, you know, is it a little bit more challenging for you to get up from these chairs than the normal chairs? Is it? Okay, stand up. Go ahead, mill around, take about a minute and a half, mill around, say hi to people that you haven't met, say hi to some old friends here, say hi to them, introduce yourselves, go. Okay, stop, stay where you are, and find one or two partners where you are right now, one or two. If you don't have a partner, jump in with another group. Everybody needs a partner. All right? Shh. Thank you, good job. I want you to share with your partner very simply why you came to this program and what you want to get out of it, okay? Why you came and what you want to get out of it. You have a minute in total. Switch on your own. Go. Okay. So let's give you some details. Some what?
Details.
I can't hear you.
Details.
Some details. All right. First of all, the timing and the agenda. We start each morning for the next 3 mornings at 9 o'clock. What time?
9 o'clock.
And we complete each day at about 10 o'clock. What time? 10 o'clock. And of course, there'll be breaks in between. That includes the last day. We finish at 10 o'clock. We have some amazing musicians coming, and you won't want to miss that, okay? And again, don't even think of missing any part of it. Make sure you're here for all of it. Don't leave early. Again, one of the reasons is habit. What's the word? Habit. There's success habits. What kind of habits? Success. And there's non-success habits. What kind of habits? Now, which ones do you want to have? Success. All right, let me ask you a question. Successful people, do they complete what they start or not? Yes. Yeah, successful people take something on. When they're doing it, they do it at 100%, and they complete what they start. Yes or yes? Yes. Most unsuccessful people, the number one reason they're unsuccessful is they don't complete what they start. They start it, they mosey it, they flake out, they get bored easily, they don't know if this is for them, they doubt, they question, and they're not successful because of it. Do you understand? Yes. So completion is a habit. Say it with me. Completion is a habit. And it's a very successful habit. Yes or yes? Yes. So that's why you complete what you start. That includes being here on time. That means completing from the beginning. Yes or yes? Yes. All right, good. So, nice and loud. I complete what I start. Just want to high five and say, you're awesome. Okay, now, as for your instructors, I will be your main host for the program, and assisting me will be, as you met earlier, amazing Mr. Robert Riepel. Give Robert a big round of applause. We've also brought some of the most spectacular speakers and authors on the planet to inspire and teach you. And many of these authors are people that I learned from, I gleaned from, I got amazing ideas from, new insights from. Yes or yes? Yes. All right, so you're going to learn from a lot of my actual famous teachers and things like that. Also, just so you know, I've asked each of them to bring some support material or products with them to save you the time and hassle of trying to order it online or track them down, et cetera, et cetera. Those products will be in the inspiration booths that are located around the event here, and I'm sure they'll make some offers from the stage if that's okay. And now listen, if you want the material, fine, get it. If you don't, fine, don't get it. Doesn't matter. What matters here is all these people are amazing, amazing trainers who have come here out of the goodness of their wonderful hearts to teach you and be with you here this weekend. Good or good? Good. All right, good. Now, by the way, there'll be some of their materials will be in the Inspiration stores now, and you'll know who's coming up, but the materials are there now, so you can get it all during the entire weekend if you want. At the Inspiration stores, you'll also find the chairs and T-shirts and hats, in case you want to get those. We also not just have speakers here, we have some amazing musicians coming for you to groove to too. Yes or yes? And that'll mostly be in the evening. In fact, tonight we have 2 outrageous bands coming. Good or good? All right, you'll hear them setting up and stuff like that. I want to bring out our first speaker, our first presenter. And it's a pleasure to do this. You all mic'd up, ready to go? I want this too. All right. This book right here is called The Dragon Doesn't Live Here Anymore. Now, everybody raise your hand if you have or have read this book. Raise your hand if you have never read this book. Where are you? Listen, I don't know how many we have here. And I want every single person in this audience to get and read at least this book. This was one of my carry-around books. Do you know what a carry-around book is? It's a book you keep with you. It's a book you carry around. I remember carrying this around for about half a year. Read it several times, 7, 8, 9 times. Always passages. Open it when I'm in the bathroom. You know, just read, you know, 2, 3 sections of it or whatever. Take it with me on trips. Take it with me on the airplane. Take it with me everywhere. Good or good? This was one of the first books that I ever read that really made a difference in my heart and my spirit and my understanding of who I was and why I was here. Plus, it's funny, it's entertaining, it's awesome, and so is the gentleman who wrote it. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to bring him here, because so many other gurus follow him and follow his lead and his teachings. And so we have him here for you. Are you excited? Yeah. All right. He's not just written this book, he's got over 20 books that he's written, including A Deep Breath of Life and the classic, Are You As Happy As Your Dog? He has a monthly column called From the Heart that appears in magazines all over the world. His books have been translated into 20, how many? 20 different languages. And again, he's involved in, he's got a great vision, lots of warmth, and he touches people in their heart. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Wayne Dyer. Here's what he said of this gentleman, that he is one of my favorite authors. He's a major, major player in the great transformation that's now taking place on the planet. Raise your hand if you ever heard of Neil Donald Walsh, author of Conversations with God. Neil Donald Walsh says, no one in my life has contributed more to my movement down the path of consciousness and expansion than this gentleman. This is his first time ever on a peak potential stage. He's not sure what to expect. The one, the only, Mr. Alan Cohen!
Hey, buddy. Thank you, brother. It worked. It worked. They do it. They do it. Thank you. Have a seat. It is a profound honor to be here. And I have to say that I have done many events and worked with many clients, and I've seen many acts of faith and miracles. But to get 4,000 people to show up at an event like this without knowing who's speaking, that rocks. And I have seen the cast of characters, and I assure you will not be disappointed. In fact, it's a glorious list. So thank you for your faith in showing up. I love that Harv talked about hugging, because I've been a professional hugger for many years, and I've learned through many people in my program. So I would like to begin with a very short hug workshop. Would you like to do that? Stand up, please, okay? So I'd like you to find one person to practice with, okay? So turn to face one person. And I would like a volunteer from the audience to come up. Come up. Thank you, sir. Okay. So first, we're going to do all the ways not to hug, because I've seen them all. And I crave intimacy, and when I don't get it, I miss it. Okay. So face your partner. And the first one is what we call the A-frame hug. So you hug, and your loins are very far apart. And you make sure that your loins do not touch. Okay, the next one is what we call the burp hug, where you hug and you very gently pat your partner. Okay. The next one is the guy hug, where you basically, you know, hey, hey, yo, yo. Okay. The next one is what we call the X-lax hug, where you take a long, deep breath and you go, ah. So go ahead and do that. Ah. The next one is the massage hug. You take your partner and you massage their back.
Oh, yeah. I like that.
Up and down their back.
I like that one.
And we'll do one more, and that's called the slobber clinch, where you hold on and you never let go. So go ahead, hug your partner and keep hugging them. And now whatever you do, don't let go. Don't let go. Whatever you do, hold on, hold on. Don't let them go. Don't let them go. Okay. And finally, we're going to give a good, juicy, real hug with no distractions. Just get in there, open your heart, open your body, and just be with your partner. Go for it.
Yes. Thanks, Al.
Thank you, brother.
That's awesome.
Thank you, Kevin.
Pleasure.
Give yourselves a big hand. Thank you. Okay, have a seat. This morning, I would like to introduce you to someone that's going to be very important in your life. And it's not someone out there, it's someone in here. And that's why I decided to call my workshop this morning, The Guru in You. So I have 3 goals for our time together. 1 is to remind you of your true brilliance. Now notice I didn't say create your brilliance. Notice I didn't say get brilliance. I said to remind you of the brilliance that you are already sitting with us in this very wonderful moment. The 2nd is to inspire you to access it and act on it. Because you can be brilliant, and you are, but if you're not tapping into it, what good is it? So I'm going to show you some skills and inspire you to connect with the brilliance that you already own. It's like tapping a pipeline into a vast reservoir. And finally, I want to have a good time together. Are you into that? Good time together? Because what's the use of learning something if you're not enjoying it? So we're going to play. I mean, I have 90 minutes with you, and I want to make them count. I don't want to go away thinking we're getting somewhere without being somewhere. How many of you have a to-do list? How many of you have a to-be list? What's the use of getting everything done if you lost your spirit in the process? So it's all about becoming and unfolding rather than getting somewhere. So I'd like to tell you about a video I saw many years ago. There was a short show that was on TV for a short time. It was called Totally Hidden Video. It was like a remake of Candid Camera. And on this show, they played a trick on a FedEx driver. And what they did was they took his ID, his photo ID, and he did something with it I'll tell you about later. And they dispatched him to a temple, which was a fictitious temple, like a Hare Krishna kind of sect with robes and curtains. And these were all actors that were set up by the TV show. And as the FedEx driver comes in, they all stand up and go, ooh-ah, ooh-ah, ooh-ah. And he said, well, here I am. And they said, we've been waiting for you. And he said, yeah, I know, I had some traffic on the freeway. And they said, no, we believe you are the deliverer. And he said, yeah, here's your package. And they said, no, you don't understand. 100 years ago, when our founder began this sect, he prophesied that there would be a great one who would come and deliver us around this time. And we have reason to believe it's you. And he said, no, I don't think so. And they said, please come with us. And they usher him into the back of the temple, and they open up a great curtain, and there's a life-size portrait of him in the fez and the mustache and the gowns. And they said, see? He goes, ah, I get it. Then they say, please, would you give us some words of wisdom? He says, all right. So they take him to this cushion, and he sits down, and they're all sitting there, oohing and eyeing. And he says, you know, life is like a river. And they go, ooh, ah, ooh, ah. And he says, sometimes it's flowing rapidly, and sometimes it's kind of stagnant. But if you just hang in there, you get to the ocean. Pretty good stuff, huh? Right? And they're all oohing and eyeing, oohing and eyeing. He said, well, I got to go now. Well, the thing was, they played this trick on 3 FedEx drivers, and each one of them, when they got to sit on the cushion, had something very profound to say, which tells me that there's a guru in everybody. Dale Carnegie said, give them a reputation to live up to. Because you can draw forth somebody's wisdom, or you can draw forth their stupidity by focusing on either one. And what you're doing here this weekend, what you're doing with Peak Potentials, is you're practicing building habits and skills to draw forth that magnificence. That's all we're doing. We're drawing forth the magnificence that always lives, already lives. And I want to give you a brief exercise now to prove this. I'd like you to stand up one more time. I know you're all comfortable, but I'd like you to face one other person, and I'd like you to tell them, I am brilliant at. So say, I am brilliant at, and fill in something that you are truly brilliant at. So go ahead. And then take turns. What are you brilliant at? So tell them something you're brilliant at. Go ahead. You all know something you're brilliant at. Give yourselves a big hand. Now here's the thing. Have a seat. Be comfortable. Did it make you feel brilliant? You are. Every time you say something negative about yourself, you're lying. Those two words, I am, are the most creative words in the universe. In the Bible, it says, in the beginning was the Word. And when you say I am and you fill in the blank with any word, you activate your creative potential. So be careful what you fill in that blank with. When you say I am sick, I am poor, I am lonely, I am afraid, I am lost, I am screwed, you create that. When you say I am whole, I am magnificent, I am rich, I am powerful, I am lovable, you create that. Every single moment of the day, you are creating your life with the power of the Word. Be very careful about how you're using your words, because it's the power of Spirit that's working through you. Funny thing, a while back I was teaching at Omega Institute in New York, and I was walking across the lawn to go to breakfast one day, and a woman says, "Excuse me, do you know what time it is?" And I didn't have a watch, and I took a guess. I said, "Well, I think it's about 9:15. And she said, "Oh no, I think it was 9:15 half an hour ago." And I thought, why'd you ask me then? Because there's something inside her that she was looking for confirmation. You see, when I was in graduate school, they told me that a consultant is someone who borrows your watch to tell you what time it is. You see, because you already know. I knew a guy who set himself up as a tarot reader, tarot cards, and he wasn't psychic, he didn't even know the cards, but he was smart. So people would come to him, and they would pull a page of cups or whatever. He'd say, "What do you think that means?" She says, "Oh, I think I should really confront my husband." He'd say, "Yes, that's what it is." And then someone would say, "What do you think I should do about my job?" And he'd say, "What do you think you should do?" They'd say, "Oh, I think I should wait a little while and then decide." He says, "That's what I was getting too." And people would pay him big bucks to confirm what they already knew. I do a lot of coaching. I do executive coaching and personal coaching. And the secret to how many do coaching here? Anybody? A lot of them. Good. The secret to coaching is this. You find out what the person wants to do and you tell them to do it. Then you find out what they're not liking doing, you tell them to quit doing it. They will love you and pay you. And it's not illicit, because all you're doing is you're finding out where their passion lives. And you're supporting them to live from passion rather than guilt, fear, and obligation, which is the way so many of us have lived our lives. And how's that been working for you? Not so good. So this woman knew what time it is, and you know what time it is in your life. You're here for a reason. You're not here by an accident. You hooked up with peak potentials. You hooked up with everything that's happening in your life now by what I call divine design, because you are ripe and ready to move ahead, and now is the moment. So I'm going to give you a little exercise, and I would like to have, we'll say 3 people come up who would like to do a little exercise in inner knowing. And I'd like you to think of, 1, 2, and 3, okay? Just run up here. Somebody will help you. And as you're coming up, okay, we'll take 4. As you're coming up, I'd like you to think about something in your life that you have a question about or you're not knowing about. And we'll get you a mic.
We didn't hear you.
Okay, I'll repeat it. Can we get this live? What's your name, Shelley? Give these people a hand for coming up, huh? Okay. Okay, so Shelley, take a moment and think about something that's going on in your life that you have a question about or you're not sure about, that you don't really know about. What would that be?
How about my ultimate destiny?
That's a good one. We'll start with something easy, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, now, if you did know, what would you say?
To help people change their lives.
So you know.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, give her a hand. Okay, come. Okay, Brenda, don't try to plan this because it's just spontaneous. Okay, so have you said anything lately, I don't know, or you're wondering about this, I feel stuck, or I don't know what to do about it? Go ahead, what would that be?
One of the areas I'm stuck in is, what do we want to do with our home? Do we want to sell now and find some other location to live in? So really, like, where do we really want to end up? I just want to end up finally in our last home and not have to think about moving and all that stuff.
Good, that's a nice practical example. Okay, so take a moment, Brenda. And if you were that guru sitting on a cushion and you did know, what would you know about that?
Well, I would know that I would like to stay one in California and possibly Costa Rica.
Okay, so you know, sort of.
Kind of.
But you see, you don't have to know the ultimate thing, you just have to know the next step.
Okay.
You see? So you're biting it off in little pieces, and you're recognizing what your next step of knowingness is.
Uh-huh.
Does that feel better than not knowing?
Yes.
Okay, so I give you a little exercise for when you go home. So every time you get to this dilemma, and you start to say, I don't know, or I wish I knew, zip it.
Okay.
And at that point, you say, what I think I know is, and then proceed from your knowingness rather than your not knowingness.
Got it.
Got it?
Thank you.
Give
Yes.
Brenda a hand. Thank you. Okay, Bonnie? I don't know. Be honest. What do you feel like you don't know?
I don't know how to attract the powerful managers I need for my motorcycle schools.
Wow, that's a good one, isn't it? Say it again.
I don't know how to attract and keep the powerful managers that I need to assist in running my motorcycle schools.
Cool. Okay. So now I'm Bonnie, and I'm coming to you. And I'm saying, how can I possibly attract the powerful managers to run my motorcycle school and keep them? What would you tell me, Guru?
I don't know.
But
I mean, I agonize over this.
yeah, but and there's drama in that, isn't there?
Yeah.
It's a juicy drama. Don't you love agonizing?
No.
Okay. So if you really,
really
don't,
don't.
then let's stop it now.
I really don't.
So just for a moment, suspend not knowing. Just,
Okay.
Just put it. You can go back to not knowing. That's just fine.
Okay.
But just suspend it for a moment. And if you did know, like if some place deep inside you really knew, what would you know? If you had to take a guess at how this might work, what would you say?
Theoretically, there are people there who want to do this,
Yes?
and my job is to find them,
Uh-huh.
and that's what I don't know how to do.
Okay, but for this exercise, you don't get to say I don't know.
Okay.
So you got half of it. There are people out there.
Okay. There are people out there
Yeah.
who want to do this work,
Now, doesn't that feel better than how am I going to find them? Okay.
and
now-
they should be looking for me.
right.
They should be
Right.
seeking me because they know that I have this chain of schools that needs managers.
So do you mean to tell me that the universe actually functions in a sense of balance, and that where you have a need for them, there's somebody out there who has a need for you, and you're both putting out energies and intentions and desires to connect, and somehow the universe might actually have a way of linking you up because your need matches theirs? Is that what you're actually telling me?
I think that's what I'm hearing.
That's damn
That
brilliant.
sounds really good, too.
Can you live with that?
I can really live with that.
Look at her. She's a transformed
feels a
woman
lot
right behind
better.
you. Right. She's been healed. Very good. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. Okay. So these were just little examples. You see, practicing and acting as if you know really taps you into the place that knows. Because you're not stupid, even though you've been told you are. The people who told you were stupid felt stupid themselves. You understand? They didn't know what to do with their stupidity, so they projected it onto you. Not that they were really stupid, because everybody's really smart. But people who don't love themselves have a hard time being with other people who love themselves, so they couldn't let you be big. But what we're doing here this weekend, and in your life work now, is you're practicing magnitude. We've practiced smallness for our whole lives, and now we're stepping into our magnitude. Let's all say that. I'm stepping into my magnitude. I'm owning my magnitude. I'm claiming my magnitude. And here's the best one. You're going to love this one. I am my magnitude. Now, doesn't something ripple inside you when you say that? And here's the thing about an affirmation. Harv has a wonderful thing about affirmations and declarations. But here's how an affirmation works when it really works. The spirit within me loves to hear the truth about itself. So when you say, I am magnificent, and I am whole, and my heart is open, and I can attract people from my motorcycle school, something inside you ripples, and you go, yeah, that feels a lot better than poor me. So what we're doing is tapping into the place inside of us that remembers the truth about ourselves. Just for a fun example, there was a man named George Danzig, who was he was a math student at USC many years ago, and he came to class one day, and he came in late, and there were a couple of math problems on the board that he hadn't copied down because he came in late, and the teacher usually puts stuff like that for homework. And so he copied them down, and he did them from homework. He solved the problems, and he came back, and he handed in the next class. And next night, the professor comes knocking on his door. What's up? How did you do this, George? How did I do what? How did you solve these two unsolvable math problems? These are two classically unsolvable problems. He said, oh, I thought they were homework. Nobody told them they were unsolvable. And so what if all the limits you live with are entirely learned? There is no such thing as a natural limit to you. Every limit you experience has been learned from an outer source that contradicts your inner knowing. And what we're doing now is we're moving from outer sourcing to inner sourcing. So there are things in your life that seem unsolvable, but only because you think there are diseases in this world that seem incurable. Only because there's a mass agreement that this thing cannot be cured. Because if any disease has ever been cured, it's curable. You see? So I would never accept a prognosis incurable. Because there's one factor that no doctor or anybody cannot take into account, and that's your consciousness. That you see, doctors cite statistics of how many people with this disease live this long and what happens to them. But that's just if your consciousness matches theirs. If you hold a higher consciousness than the people who go sideways with it, you get to have a different result. That's why all this work we're doing here is about developing consciousness. And I love what Harv says in his books about developing a wealth blueprint. We're developing a prosperity blueprint, and prosperity is not just about money. Prosperity is about health, it's about relationships, it's about joy, it's about career, it's about play. So we're making a new blueprint for our lives. Say that together. I'm making a new blueprint for my life. I'm making a new blueprint for my life. Even as we sit here, you know, when you get 4,000 people or so sitting, agreeing, I'm making a new blueprint for my life, boy, does it click. It says that where two are gathered and in agreement, things happen. So what happens when 4,000 are gathered in agreement? How powerful is that? When you say, I'm making a new blueprint for my life, boy, something is shifting. So let me give you some tips on how to access this guru in you, okay? Because it's one thing to know it's there, it's another thing to get to it. So we're going to go to step one. I'm going to give you 10 steps. And really, the truth is that they're all connected. So if you get some of them and not the others, it's fine. If you just get one good one, you're way ahead of the game, and you will see each one leads to the next. So the first step is to claim inherent brilliance. Claim inherent brilliance. That's just what we did in our exercise. So I would like you to repeat after me. I claim my inherent brilliance. 1, 2, 3. I claim my inherent brilliance. Boy, that just wafts up here, almost bowled over. Because that's a powerful truth. And I want to show you something about your inherent brilliance. We have a cute photo I found here. Now, does anybody recognize a similarity between those two figures? Because when we are little children, now the word Buddha means enlightened. Anybody who's enlightened is a Buddha. So we come in Buddha-like and enlightened. I think my notes just went away. That's okay, I'm done with them. We come in knowing. You were born knowing, and you were trained out of knowing. That's why someone said we started out fine, and then we got defined. And now what we're doing this weekend is we're getting refined. You are returning to your original innocence. Forget about original sin. I'm done with that thing. We started out innocent. Now, this original sin, the word sin, is S-I-N, stands for self-inflicted nonsense. I'm writing a new book called Original Grin. Because we came in totally lined up with the universe, and then we were trained away. So we're retraining our minds to come back to who we were before we forgot. All this is, all you're doing in your life now is a course in selective remembering. Selective remembering. I live in Maui. Somebody has to do it. And some of you might know that the great humpback whales come there every winter. And what they do is they stay in in Canada and Alaska during the summer, and they come in the winter and migrate, and they mate 1 year, and then they come back 1 year later, and they give birth. And all the whales cluster in this little basin about 12 miles in diameter between the islands of Maui, Lanai, and Molokai. And if you come to Maui during the winter, you will see them spouting and jumping and playing. It's quite delightful. The interesting thing is that it's the same whales that come back and forth every year. Not just whales, but the same whales. They photograph their flukes, and every whale has a unique fluke, like a unique fingerprint. And they tell the same whales are coming back every year. So I wonder, how do they know how to get back and forth between 3,000 miles of deep blue sea to the same 12-mile basin every winter? How smart are they? Do they Google it? Do they go on MapQuest? And as some of you know, there's a whale song. And if you take a whale watch in Maui, they will drop a sonar microphone way down, and you hear this wonderful song. And I actually have a short clip of it. So I'd like you to hear this haunting song, because I'm going to tell you something about it. Now here's the thing about the whale song. You can keep playing it. Every year, the whale song evolves. So each year, it's a new song with the old song partially and variations on the theme. Now here's the cool part of it. Every year, all the humpback whales around the world know the same new song. So the Baja humpbacks and the Maui humpbacks and the Australian humpbacks, somehow they're all tuned into that year's song. How smart are they? Where does wisdom live? Who planted instincts? Is the universe intelligent? Is there a divine plan? I would say yes, 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 because animals are so smart. We just need to own our smarts. Next, number 2. So what do you do once you've claimed your wisdom and you know you're smart and you're willing to admit it? How do you get there? Well, what you have to do, number 2, is you have to pave your own unique avenue to inner wisdom. Now, what does that mean? There are things that you do that connect you to it. Now, some people meditate, some people pray, some people do yoga, some people jog, some people do music, whatever it is, but there are certain things that you do that tap you into your knowing. I like to be in nature. I swim, I hike, I snorkel. And when I do that, I know things that I don't know when I'm sitting at my computer for many hours a day. So the name of the game, I'll tell you all the 2 things you ever need to know. The 10 Commandments can be boiled down to this and expanded on. Number 1, do what brings you life. Do what brings you life. Number 2, quit doing what deadens you. Forget about everything else you've ever heard. If you do what brings you life, you will be wealthy, happy, and wise. If you quit doing what deadens you, you'll get lighter and freer every day. So every time you have an act before you, a decision, a date, somebody invites you for sex, somebody invites you for dinner, whatever it is, you try it on for size, and you say, does this enliven me or does this deaden me? If it enlivens you, it's a good thing to do, my friends. If it deadens you, why would you want to do something that would disconnect you from yourself? So let me give you some examples of people who paved their avenue to inner wisdom. Thomas Edison, one of the great inventors of our time. Do you know how he accessed answers to his difficult experiments? He would get stuck in an experiment, and he would lay down on a couch, and he would hold a rock in his hand. And he would say, okay, I want to know what's the next step here. What do I need to do here? What can solve this question? And he would doze off for one of his famous cat naps. Now, as he dozed off, he would relax. His hand would open. The rock would thud to the floor, and he would wake up. But at that point, he had sunk into his subconscious inner knowing, at which point the answer to his experiment lived. And he would wake up and he would know. And he developed, he invented the motion picture, alkaline battery, the incandescent light, the recorder, many, many more. Because he knew how to tap into his inner knowing. And so do you. I tell you, Edison is no greater than you. All he did was practice it. There's nobody that's greater than you. We're each great in our own way. We each just need to tap into our own greatness. Never try to live somebody else's dream, because it'll flop on you. Live your own. Harv had a dream for this. Somebody was telling me that Harv was just saying that he had, since 15 years old, is that what you said, Harv? He was visioning this event since he's 15, that's 10 years ago. And now it's a reality, because it's his dream. If he tried to do somebody else's dream, it wouldn't work. But he's true to his, here's the definition of integrity. Integrity is when the life that you're living on the outside matches who you are on the inside. That's all integrity is. And when you're not in integrity, you get sick and your money backs up and you get into fights. But when the life that you're living on the outside matches who you are on the inside, that's integrity. And that's how you get a bunch of people to come to an event like this without even knowing who's going to talk to them. That's powerful integrity. I call that lined up with the Tao, lined up with the entire universe. And you're lined up with you. Mozart had his way of getting it. He said, "It is when I am completely myself, entirely alone and of good cheer, that ideas flow best and most abundantly. Whence and how they come, I know not, nor can I force them." So all he was saying was that when he gets relaxed and he gets in tune with himself, ideas come. So never try to force an idea. Never try to force a result. Somebody says, if you can't pray a door open, don't try to pry it open. In other words, when you get into that macho thing, I'm going to make this happen no matter what, you've lost your flow. Get quiet, step back, be at peace, and in that space, I'm going to make a confession. I get my best ideas when I'm eating, when I'm sitting on the toilet, and when I'm taking a shower. 3 times of great relief in my life. But there's something about that quiet time that I just get great ideas, and I go to the typewriter and write. So ideas can come at any time, but when you're lined up with yourself and you're relaxed, they come more fluently. The pipeline is open. It's like, this is a great wealth metaphor. You have a 10,000-gallon water tank from which you water your garden through a hose, and you go out one day, and a few little droplets come out, and you go, what happened to my water? There's not enough water. Somebody stole my water. My neighbor's doing it to me again. The universe is not supplying. And then you look down, and you're standing on the hose. So bottom line of all prosperity work is to get off your own hose. Nobody's crimping your hose but you. Only you have the power to crimp it, and only you have the power to uncrimp it. Relax and let it flow. And it goes for money, it goes for health. All health blockages are about resistance. The body is made to flow. The body is an energy machine of flow, flow, flow. When you get uptight and crimp down, that's where disease comes. The answer to disease is not to fight it, but to relax and allow health to return. Health is your natural state. That's why disease is called dis-ease, because what that assumes is that ease is natural and dis-ease is unnatural. So if you're feeling bad or hurting in any way, get back to ease. I love that seminar. What's it called? Never Work Again? Was that a title? What a great title. I have a metaphor in my mastery training and my mentorship program. I say, let it be easy. Struggle is not required. Didn't say work is not required, didn't say action is not required, didn't say effort is not required, but struggle is not required. When you get into struggle, it can't be it. Would you agree, Harv? Never work. If it feels like work, it's not it. Somebody said, do what you love and you'll never work another day in your life. Someone else said, if all you're receiving for your work is money, you're being grossly underpaid. Because it's all about joy. When you have the joy, the money flows. If it's just the money, well, joy may flow, it may not. So we're all about opening up to greater joy. That's the name of this game. That's all it is. When Norman Vincent Peale was on a plane one day, he was sitting next to a young lady. You know him, a Power of Positive Thinking, great mentor. So he's sitting next to a young lady, and she said, can you help me? Yes. Well, these two men proposed to me, and I'm not sure who to marry. Can you help me decide? He said, oh, I can tell you right now. He says, I don't think you should marry either one of them. And she said, why not? He said, because if you have to ask me, you're not in love with either of them. So either you know or you don't. Either it's it or it's not. In my book, Why Your Life Sucks and What You Can Do About It, I quoted this quote, if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. If you can't do it with a whole heart, don't do it. Say that, repeat that with me. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. And lots of times, Dee and I are deciding to do something, and I'll go, yeah. She says, is it a hell yes for you? And I'll go, no. She says, well, then it's a hell no. For example, we had a property that came for sale next to our house, and we live at the end of the road, and it's really just two properties. And so our next door house came for sale, so we wanted to buy it just so we could have good neighbors instead of just anybody, which we did. And we had some people show up to buy it, and we had a contract, and the woman who was spearheading their deal became very, very fussy and started challenging all the issues, and it was detail and nitpicking, and then we had a survey done, and she moved the stake, and on and on. And they were offering us a good price. It was the money we wanted. But we looked at each other and said, can we really live next to this person? And it's not a hell yes. Well, then it's a hell no. And we thought, well, if negotiating with this person is so difficult, what's it going to be like to live next to him? So we lovingly pulled the plug on the deal. And then a month or two later, another couple came. The most beautiful couple we've ever met. Loving, sweet, dear, playful people. We fell in love with them. We became friends. We sold the property. Not one hassle. We cooperated with lots of issues. It's a dream come true, especially because they're never home. But I'm so glad we didn't force ourselves to go for that first deal because it wasn't a hell yes. Because the universe was waiting to send us a hell yes. And if you jump at hell no's, then you don't get your hell yeses. You have just so much space on your disk, and if it's filled up with stuff you don't want to be doing, you don't get to do the stuff you want to be doing. So if it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no. Trust your gut. You know. You know you have this queasy feeling when something is wrong. Do you know that they've done some studies, and they found that on planes that have crashed, they've had a very high, a higher than usual percentage of people canceling the flight beforehand. That's scary, but something in them new. Or do you know that before there's an earthquake, there's a much higher percentage of lost pet ads in the newspaper because the animals sense the vibrations beforehand, and they go crazy and they leave and so forth. But okay, so that's to avoid stuff that's not going to work. But when you meet somebody and you have a connection with them, something inside you knows this is good. And act on it. Trust it. Even if rationally it doesn't seem right, you feel attracted to this person. You feel drawn to them. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe your inner being is saying this person has something to do with you. It's going to be valuable. So there's a whole new world of management training called management by intuition. You see, we've developed our left brain to the hilt, and now we want to develop our right brain. There's facts and figures, but then there's also gut feelings. So trust your gut, which leads us to passion before pension, number 4. Some psychologists did a study, and they wanted to find out what kind of music is most inspiring to most people. What kind of music moves people the most? Take some guesses. What do you think they found? What? Foxtrot? rock, classical, rap, reggae. Here's what they found. They found that there was no particular kind of music that was more inspiring to the others than others. However, the key factor was the amount of passion with which the musician was playing. Because you see, people were catching the music, but as Harv said, it's all about moving energy around. So when you get somebody on stage who's in their element, who's in their energy, who's moving power, that's what you're catching, and that's what makes you feel good. That's what makes you fall in love with somebody on stage. It's dangerous being a speaker because somebody gets up here and, you know, I give from my heart and I show up and I'm live, and then you think I'm your soulmate. It happens, but not necessarily so. What's happening is I'm feeling my passion because I'm talking about what's interesting to me. By the way, I only have two goals when I speak. One is to inspire myself and the other is to entertain myself. Because if I'm bored, you don't stand a chance. In fact, someone asked Michael Beckwith, who was on The Secret, is a friend of mine, is a wonderful minister. They said, how do you inspire people? He said, well, I just set myself on fire and people watch me burn. So if you're a teacher or a counselor or anything that affects anybody, set yourself on fire and let people watch you burn. They will catch your joy. We had a guy at my mastery training in Hawaii. At the end of the week, we're having lunch, and I said, what do you like to do? He says, oh, I'm into restoring military aircraft. And I go, oh, that's interesting. But he got into it, and he says, yeah, we do this, and I belong to this club, and then we found this one. And you know, within 5 minutes, I was really excited about it. Not because I want to do it, because I was catching his joy, and it was a pleasure to be in his space while he was in his joy. So your gift to anyone, your gift to the planet is to live in your passion and let the right people gravitate to you. Because people who are afraid of passion will go away, and people who want passion will show up, and you'll have passion interludes and all kinds of good things will happen. And your job is not to get other people to be passionate. Your job is to be passionate and trust that setting that tone will lift everyone you meet into that space. That's what you're doing here this weekend. Next. I love this one. Now we're getting to the stuff that's really fun for me. It's all fun, but be perfectly authentic. Be perfectly authentic. Have you ever noticed that the words genius and genuine are pretty much the same letters? That when you're genuine, you're in your genius? Have you ever noticed that the word authentic and authority have the same root? So that when you're authentic, you're in your authority. So it's not so much about being polished. It's not so much about being slick. It's about being real. Realness rocks. Let me give you another example. I'm having fun, by the way. Are you? This is good for me. Is it good for you? Okay. There's a wonderful Hawaiian entertainer. A lot of you have heard him. His name is Iz. Raise your hand if you've heard of Iz. Wow. His real name is Israel Kamakahola Vive. I've been living in Hawaii for 20 years, and I still can't say his name. But he was a gentle giant. He had some kind of genetic disorder that caused him to be very obese, and he lived most of his life between 400 and 500 pounds. But he was all heart. And he became like the Elvis of Hawaiian music, if you will. And his music is now worldwide acclaimed. And he has a very famous song that's called Somewhere Over the Rainbow. He plays with the ukulele. Okay, now you love the song. It's been in many movies. But here's what I'm going to tell you. You probably didn't realize. How many have heard that song? Okay, I'm going to tell you something you haven't noticed. He totally botches the words. Have you ever noticed that? You haven't noticed because you like the song too much. So here's this guy has a platinum album, and he screws it. None of the words rhyme. So listen to what he's done. That album was the first Hawaiian to go platinum, a million albums. That album has been in the following TV shows and movies: 2 episodes of ER, Meet Joe Black, Finding Forrester, 50 First Dates, Son of the Mask, and many more. So people don't sit down and say, oh, you got the words wrong. We can't use your CD, dude. They say, we love your music, we love your heart, we love your spirit. We feel you. So this is what's happening, friends. When you give a massage, when you give a lecture, when you have a child, when you do anything, people are so starved for passion and life force that they want to feel your energy. Nothing is more demoralizing than somebody who's doing something they hate or they're bored at, because you're giving the gift of boredom to the world. It's a ripoff. So stop doing anything. Someone said that boredom is an insult to oneself and everyone around you. You cannot afford boredom because it rips everybody off. So someone said the word guru, G is spelled G-U-R-U. G-U-R-U, which means the real guru is being the real you. Do you remember Jennifer Capriati? She's a wonderful tennis player. So at the age of 12, she was rocking the tennis world. And somebody asked her, do you intend to become the next Chris Everett? She thought for a moment. She answered, no, I intend to become the first Jennifer Capriati. So you want to be the first you. You have a blueprint on you. People know heart. People know heart. I know heart. Repeat that. I know heart. So when somebody shows up who has heart, you get them. You just feel them. When you have heart, people get you. It's not about presentation. Presentation is important, but it's more about essence. Somebody once said, they listened to me speak, he said, well, I didn't meet all the rules of a good public speaker, but I was their favorite speaker because I was real. I thought that was a good compliment. You see, I refused to ruin my career with training. I'm just kidding you. Training is good, but essence is even more important. There's a guy named Zumbeck the Tailor. Have you heard of him? You see, a lot of us have tried to stuff ourselves into molds. So a guy went to Zumbeck the Tailor, and he's being fitted for a new suit. And as he's standing in front of the mirror, he says to the tailor, you know, Tailor, this arm is a little short, this sleeve is a little short. I think you need to lengthen it. And Zumbeck says, no, no, no. The sleeve is not too short, your arm is too long. He said, just pull your arm up in like this, and it'll be a good fit. So he does. And he says, well, that's cool, but now the whole nape of my collar is up. That's not right. He says, there's nothing wrong with the collar. Your neck is too low. He says, pull your neck like this. He says, well, that fits now. My whole butt is sticking out. He goes, no, your butt is too big. Just squeeze it in like this and pull it in. And he got a perfect fit. So Zumbeck convinces the man that he has a perfect fit, and he pays him. And he walks out, and he walks down the street in this suit. And these two women are passing him, going the opposite direction, and they say hello. And after they pass him, one woman says to the other, you know, that poor guy sure is crippled. And the other lady says, yeah, but the suit looks beautiful. And so the idea is that a lot of us have entered into relationships that cripple us, into jobs that cripple us, into consciousness trainings or religions or spiritual paths. And in some ways they serve, but after a point, you start to feel like this. And you say, what's wrong with me? Why can't I be the perfect person in this job? Why can't I be the perfect wife or the perfect husband? But what you thought was wrong with you may be what's right with you. Maybe you're not supposed to be there. Maybe you're supposed to speak up, or maybe there's some kind of shift that needs to happen. But one thing is for sure, it's not about walking around crippled. And I see people walking through airports crippled. I sat at the ferry at Tiburon, California one day and watched people get off the ferry from San Francisco, and they all got off like this. And I thought, where is the life? What were these people doing for the last 8 or 9 hours that crippled them? It's a sad thing. So now what I do is I look for signs of life. I will look for the one person who's alive, and I'll look at them. You see, it's where does life live? That's the real question. You see, you have certain gifts that you have to be true to. And if you're not true to them, your world falls apart. Let's take Bill Gates, for example. Can we find that? You all know Bill Gates. Yeah, right on, Bill Gates. So Someone, there were a few websites where people track Bill Gates' wealth. They have nothing better to do than count his money. You can go on them and find them. And someone figured out that if Bill Gates was walking down a hall at Microsoft and he saw a $1,000 bill and he leaned over to pick it up, it would not be worth his while to do so because he's making more money doing what he's doing. You understand? Because he's the visionary. You understand? Harvard's a visionary. I'm a visionary. Many of you are visionaries. And people who are visionaries love to live in the big picture. You don't see Bill Gates filling up the Coke machine in Microsoft. He has big ideas, and there's lots of people who want to play with him and help him in their own capacity. So stay true to your gifts. Don't try to do someone else's gifts. Okay, number 6. Be not distracted. Oh, this is a good one. This is so important at this time on the planet. Because there's lots of fear on the planet, there's lots of negativity, there's lots of resistance, there's war, there's pain, there's suffering. You cannot afford to go there. You have to live in your vision no matter what other people are doing with theirs. And let me give a couple of practical examples. How many have heard of the Christmas song by Mel Torme? Chestnuts roasting on an open fire, right? Do you know that he wrote the Christmas song in June? You understand that he was a man who had a vision of how things would be at another time, and he was not waiting for Christmas to come around for him to write the song. So you have to live in your vision rather than appearances. Another good example, Roger Hammerstein, Oscar Hammerstein of Roger and Hammerstein, wrote The Sound of Music, considered by many to be one of the greatest playwrights of all time. Do you know that Oscar Hammerstein wrote The Sound of Music while he was dying? That's a glorious play. We were singing as we were coming through Independence Pass, "The hills are alive." And this guy was physically dying while he was writing that song, but his spirit was soaring. So are we a body or are we a spirit? Are we stuck with outside conditions or are we empowered by inner light? So even though his body was disappearing, something in him was showing up, and that might have been his greatest work. Another example. Back in the 1970s, remember there was a gas shortage? There was a supposedly gas shortage. People were lined up for gas. Well, everybody was buying gas-efficient cars. They were selling their Cadillacs. Well, I read an article about a guy who was buying up Cadillacs like crazy for a song at the time because he knew that the market would come around. And then a couple of years ago, when gas was happening again, people were buying Cadillacs like crazy again. See, he knew that the tide always comes back in. You understand? So if you happen to be going through a period of financial difficulty or relationship dry period or health difficulty, remember, the tide always comes back in. Repeat that, please. The tide always comes back in. Cycles to life. One more cycle I'll tell you about. I live in Hawaii, as I mentioned, and after 9/11, people were not flying, and the travel industry was in the toilet, basically. And a lot of travel agencies were going belly up. Well, I read an article in the Hawaiian newspaper in March of 2002 saying that now that people were finding confidence to travel again, they were looking at vacations, and there was a small number of travel agencies that were planning trips for the spring of 2002 during the fall of 2001. You follow what I'm saying? Like everybody else was scared, and they thought nobody ever traveled again. But these people had the vision to plan trips, so when people showed up in March and April of 2002 and said, "We want a trip," they said, "Come. We're ready for you." That's what a visionary does. A visionary sees the thing that's going to happen before it's happened, and it's as real in his or her head in the vision as it would be when it actually showed up. 7. Take an action step that signifies belief. You've heard this before, but let me give you my own example. Harv mentioned this book, Directing Doesn't Live Here Anymore. I wrote this in 1980, 81. And I had never written anything before, and I was living in a little attic, and I didn't have much. I had a guitar and a Honda. Those were my possessions. And I was writing on a borrowed electric typewriter. And one day I went to a yard sale, and someone was selling a typewriter similar to the one I was writing on for 50 bucks. And at that time, 50 bucks was a lot for me. And I thought, oh, I don't need this. I'll write on the borrowed one. And I went home, and I kept thinking about that typewriter. And I'd go to sleep, and I'd see the typewriter in my eyes. And I would think about it, and I'd be writing, I'd be seeing it. And I thought, well, maybe I should get that typewriter. And I decided to go back to the yard sale. It was one of these eternal yard sales. And I said to myself, if it's still there, I will get it. And I went, and I got it. I paid my 50 bucks, which was a lot for me at that time. And I finished this book. Now, little did I know, ignorant as I was of how things were working, that this book would go on to be a bestseller. And to date, it's sold something like 220,000 copies, I don't know, something like that, at an average of $12, roughly, let's say. So it's, let's go to the next slide. So it's generated a gross profit, roughly, a gross return of $2.4 million. So let's look at the math here. $50 investment, $2.4 million return. Is this a good deal or what? Now, it's kind of an oversimplification, but my point is that every leap of faith requires a certain action step. And some of you have a typewriter that's calling to you at this moment. What's your typewriter? What's your typewriter? So turn to someone there, you're sitting down for a moment, and I would like you to just take a minute or two to say, what is it? It could be starting a business, it could be inviting somebody for a date or for marriage, it could be having a family, it could be making a move, but there's something that keeps kind of calling to you that's kind of a stretch, it's a leap of faith, and it's kind of scary, but it won't let you go. You almost can't not do it. So take a minute to talk to somebody, you both get to share, what's the typewriter that's calling to you that would be a stretch for you to step into it? Okay, thank you. Lisa. So what's your typewriter? What step would you take that would signify a leap of faith on your behalf?
Actually, to create the time to write.
What would you like to write?
Well, I've always written wonderful letters, and everything I've always written has been wonderful, but nobody's ever paid me for it. So my book is called Business from the Bathtub, Transitioning from work in the workplace to working from home.
Bravo. And so what would be your next step to signify you're going to do this?
I'm going on a cruise, and instead of just partying and laying in the sun, I will create time during that 2-week cruise to write my book.
Right on. Thank you. Excellent. Excellent. Thank you. Mark, was there one more? Okay, yes.
Amazingly enough, it's to write a book.
Yes? Go figure.
I own a restaurant, and we're in the process of doing all our systems and writing everything we need to do to franchise. And writing a cookbook has been something that my wife and her mom and everybody that surrounds me tells me I should do.
Right.
And doing that would just be a great leap of faith of saying that I am, this is where I am to be.
And what would be your next step to doing that?
Writing the book.
And what's the title?
Well, Pangea is the name of the restaurant, so it would have Pangea in it, and it would be, I make incredible soups, so Pangea soups, I don't know. It needs a little more jazz to that. But,
okay, but you're on the right track. Cool.
Have you been there? Have you eaten there?
Okay, good. Thank you. Give him a hand.
Yeah,
Thank you. Okay, one more. Lucy, what would be your next step to activating a leap of faith?
Well, I was sitting in the bathtub, and this incredible idea came to me, and it's so simple.
Let's hear.
And well, I can't tell. It's an invention.
Okay.
And so when I get back to Fort Worth, I'm meeting with a lawyer to discuss how to develop this.
Cool. Good for you. Thank you. Give them all a hand. So, do the one thing that would signify that you believed in what you're doing, because everything you do is a statement of what you think you're worth. Okay, a couple more steps. Number 8, launch and release. What does this mean? It means there's a time for putting it out there, and there's a time for letting it go. It's like if you want to mail a letter from California to New York, you drop it in the post box, and you trust that it's going to get there somehow. You don't stand behind the telephone pole and wait for the mailman to pick it up. And you don't hide in the back of the mail truck. And you don't sit on the plane to make sure it goes to New York. And you don't follow the mailman to New York. No, pretty much all the letters get where they're supposed to be in due time. You've done your part, you've launched it, and then you release it. Now, I think a lot more people err in not releasing than in not launching. Maybe it's equal. But if you're busy trying, pushing, fighting, struggling, trying to make stuff happen, and not letting it happen, why not let the universe give you a hand? Whew. What if the universe just waited and say, please let me help you? Delegate something to me. And then people show up. But you have to make the space for something else to come in to help you. Next, trust the big picture. I love this. I love this. It means that there's this thing called divine order, there's universal intelligence. It means that there are things going on afoot in the universe that you don't see that are helping you. For example, there's a wonderful story about a king and a lieutenant. And this king lived in a tropical country, and he had a lieutenant who was very positive. He'd been to many peak potential seminars. And he was actually annoying. He was so positive he was annoying. And the king and the lieutenant were out in the jungle one day, and the king was chopping a coconut, and he missed the coconut and chopped off his toe. And he's bleeding. The lieutenant says, look at my toe. The lieutenant says, oh, this is wonderful. The king says, no way. The lieutenant says, yes, there's a miracle here. The king says, I can't believe it. He says, yes, trust me, this is really good. Well, the king was so angry that he picks the lieutenant up and he hurls him bodily into a well and leaves him there to die. Dry well. Well, the king continues on his journey through the jungle, and he's apprehended by a band of wild headhunters. And they decided the king would make a fitting sacrifice for this month's offering to the volcano goddess. And so they take him and they're preparing him for the ritual, and they're putting the vestments on him and the herbs and all that. And the shaman looks down and he sees that the king has lost a toe. And he says to the king, we can't use you, I'm sorry. He says, we only give full-bodied sacrifices here. You're free to go. The king says, hallelujah, I'm out of here. And he leaves the camp, and suddenly it occurs to him that the lieutenant was right, that he lost a toe, but he saved his life. There was a miracle here. There was a big picture happening. And so he says, oh, maybe the guy's still alive. So he goes back to the well, and he's over, and there's the guy sitting there whistling. He's a very happy guy. And he picks him up, and he dusts him off, and he says, I am so sorry. He said, how can you ever forgive me? He said, you said there was a miracle here in store, and I didn't believe you, and they were going to throw me in the volcano, and they released me because I was imperfect, and it saved my life, and I did a terrible thing to you. I threw you into this well. Can you ever possibly forgive me? And the lieutenant says, no apologies necessary. The king says, why not? And he says, well, it was perfect that you threw me in the well too. And the king says, why would that be? He says, the lieutenant says, because if I was with you, they would have taken me for the sacrifice. So every minus is half of a plus waiting for a stroke of vertical awareness. So I say that again? Okay, every minus, everything that's negative, yes, on one level it's a negative. Everything that's wrong, everything that seems deficient, everything that you resist, yes, there's a minus there. But it's really just the beginning of a plus. And as you add a stroke of vertical awareness, big picture understanding, you turn your deficits into asset. You turn your scars into stars. That somehow, Gallup did a survey and they asked people, what's the worst thing that ever happened to you? And they told them. And then they asked them, what's the best thing that ever happened to you? And they told them. And they found that there was an 80% correlation between the worst and the best. In other words, 80% of the people said that what started out to be the worst thing turned out to be the best. And that's how to hold it. That's what a visionary, that's what the guru in you remembers. The guru in you remembers that there's a bigger picture, and don't be fooled by appearances, because they'll always distract you. And finally, enjoy the ride. I love what Harv said, that we're here to have a good time. You know, where I live in Maui, there's this wonderful highway called the Hana Highway. Have you heard of it? And it's a long and winding road on a thin little ribbon, and it's kind of scary, but it's fun. And the whole purpose is the ride, because when you get to Hana, it's just a sleepy little town. But there's cliffs and waterfalls and flowers and vistas, and spirit is so evident there. And some people get to Hana and they say, well, what was this all about? And they rush there and they speed and they honk and they pass people on the road. And they forgot that it was all about the ride. So what's the use of coming to the end of your life if you didn't live it? Lots of people doing workshops on life after death. Well, the question I want to ask is there life before death? What's the use of going to heaven if you live in a hell while you're here? And you've been taught by religions and various people that the more you suffer now, the better it is later. But you know what happens? The more you suffer now, the more you suffer later. Suffering does not buy happiness. Joy buys happiness. So your best investment in future joy is finding where the joy lives at this moment. And if you can have the gut, people say, how do I find my life's purpose? I say, it's easy. Tell the honest truth about what you're feeling in every moment. So if somebody says to you, would you like to go for dinner to Thai or to Italian? You don't say, whatever. You don't say, well, let's toss a coin. You don't say, well, Mercury's in retrograde, so I can't go to this and that. You say, I think I'd like to go to Thai. And maybe you'll go, maybe you won't, but at least you told your truth. So you build a muscle of getting in touch with where your joy lives. And then when it's time to make big decisions, you have a skill. See, so tell the truth now. Tell the truth now, beat the rush later. Okay, let me give you one more example, and then we'll say aloha. There's a wonderful story I heard about a man who came home from work, and he was very tired one day. And his little boy wanted to play with him, Johnny. And the guy's sitting there reading a newspaper, and he's having time to relax. And the kid says, Daddy, play with me. Daddy, play with me. And so the guy gets an idea, and he says, okay, I will distract him with a jigsaw puzzle. And Daddy tears a big page out of the paper, and it happens to be a picture of the earth. And he cuts it into 1,000 pieces, 100 pieces, we'll say. And he gives it to Johnny. He says, Johnny, here's a jigsaw puzzle. Put this back together. Daddy will play with you. Watch the tape. And he sits back smugly thinking, well, I bought myself some time. Well, 10 minutes later, Johnny's back with this whole puzzle put back together. And Dad says, how did you do that? I couldn't have done it myself in half an hour. And Johnny says, well, you know, it was pretty hard. He said, it was all jagged corners, and it was all broken, and it all looked the same. I tried to do it, and I put 3 pieces together, and it didn't work, and I gave up. So I turned one of the pieces over, and there was a picture of a man's hand. And I turned the other piece over, and there was a picture of a man's foot. So I turned all the pieces over, and it was much easier to put the man together than the world. He says, and then what I noticed was that when I put the man together, the world came together too. And that's what you're doing here this weekend. That's what we're all doing in our life. I really am impressed with this group. I have worked with many. I've been doing this for 30 years, since I was 10. And I've worked with many groups. I've worked with worldwide churches and international corporations and many groups. And the balance of energy, of spirit and being grounded, just from what I've seen in this group thus far, is equally superior to any. And and the integrity of throwing a party without telling them who the featured people are is just unbelievable. It's like, how do you do that, man? So it's a great statement of your consciousness. and yours. And the light and the joy that I have felt just for being here for half a day has almost knocked my socks off. Harbeck, or whatever you're doing, it's working, bro. Keep it up. Thank you very much. God bless you.